The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Young American Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Demister.
And I'm your co-host, Riley Murphy.
Today we're going to be talking about how New Hampshire just vetoed, Governor Sununu just vetoed the red flag gun law that passed through the House Representatives, and I believe it was the House Representatives. It wasn't a CR bill, it was an HR bill. And then also we're going to talk more Jo Jorgensen today.
More Jo Jorgensen, more New Hampshire stuff.
More New Hampshire stuff. We're going to try to focus, like at the beginning of the podcast, kind of like local news, and then towards the mid to end, we're going to move on more like
we jumped around a little bit.
Yeah, we did. Now we're going to become a little bit more organized. So veto, veto. Sununu vetoed the bill. I forget, Ben, are you pulling up the name of it? I can pull up the name of my phone, but it's the name of the bill. I want to figure out if it's an HR bill or not, but essentially it was a red flag gun law. It said that any person, family, workplace, like friends, neighbors can call the police on you and get your firearms taken away without any due process for any reason. You can give them essentially whatever reason that you think. You could just deem them
for just literally just a phone call.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes like dangerous. If anyone's familiar with like swatting, and that was like a lot of celebrities and famous people and some gamers.
It's still very popular now for people to do that still.
Yeah, it's died down a little bit because the cops are kind of understanding like a lot of these crazy phone calls probably aren't.
As the internet's evolved, it's kind of like it's become a normal thing, but they still need to take it seriously because, like,
yeah, I know there was a.
What if it, they want to assume it's something real?
Yeah, they do because you have to, or they have to. I mean, I don't always agree with them going to the front door because of someone's calls from like a blocked number and is like, hey,
they also can't treat it treat it in that way because it's like the boy who cried wolf kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
The bill was HB 687.
So HB 687 was the red flag gun law that got vetoed in New Hampshire by Sununu. This is the second time it's been vetoed, I believe. We're probably going to see it again soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're going to see it again. It's going to keep coming up on this. So as long as he's in office, he's going to keep vetoing it.
So this is the second year in a row he vetoed it.
Yeah, so it's the second
19
time.
and 20.
Yep. And it's going to keep coming. And these laws are dangerous.
Why are they going after this so hard?
That's just what the Democrats are going to do. A lot of the Republicans, some of them agree with it. Like, Trump said, like, the quote, take the guns, due process later. He was, in that quote, in that instance, in context, he was talking about red flag gun laws. And then that same conversation, he disagreed with the right for suppressors, per se. He knows it's not, federally it's not a right. You have to apply for, your good old NFA items and get a tax stamp and stuff to get suppressors. But he was actually talking about passing the Hearing Protection Act. I think that was a 2017 to 16 bill. And what that would do is take suppressors off the NFA item list for hunting uses so it could cut down noise pollution. He decided that he didn't, end quote, I don't like suppressors at all, and decided to not even touch that bill.
I don't know how well having suppressors would affect noise pollution, though, in the long run.
Well, you look at a firearm and it's going to be shooting around like anywhere from 120 decibels to 220 decibels, depending on like the barrel length and the caliber. And a lot of these hunting rifles, I know around here, like a 270 Winchester is going to be like the most popular deer rifle.
When it comes down to it, not everyone is going to be using it. I feel like it's not really going to make that big of an impact.
No, and I think a lot of people are going to be using it, like a lot of hunters like using it because myself, I grew up hunting as a youth, and I have been doing it for a few years, but you're shooting without hearing protection on the woods because you're listening for the animals. And nowadays, you have the hearing protection is amplified, so now you have something to supplement for that.
It's actually pretty impressive now.
Yeah, it is. Like when we go shooting, I throw my extra pair to you and
turn the volume all the way up, and you
sounds
can hear
just like this.
You can hear the leaves moving in the woods 50 meters out.
Really. And I don't know why he decided that they weren't, end quote, good at all. I believe it was because he thinks that once you get over the counter, people are going to be stealing them because they're in gun shops all the time. But like you walk in the Granite State, and they're right there.
It does bring up another area of, kind of dangerous activities.
Yeah, but that's with any firearm.
That's true. That's very true.
Like potentially for any firearm. I mean,
yeah, I guess when it comes to that, it's like no matter what, a firearm's a firearm. You're gonna have whatever problems come with that.
And when there's a will, there's a way. There's machine shops and there's items.
If someone wants to do something, they're going to.
Yep, they can make one if they want to. They can make whatever. Like literally, anyone with any knowledge can. Knowledge is a weapon per se. I mean, you can do whatever you want with the right knowledge.
You have the internet now.
Yeah, that's
Quick Google.
great place. Internet's a great place. But so going back to how dangerous those red flag gun laws are, I believe Breonna Taylor, she was an individual. She was an EMT down in New Orleans, and she was. I don't think it was essentially. It wasn't a red flag gun law, Breonna Taylor. I think it was a warrant, but they were at the wrong house. And in that instance, people might say, well, they're at the wrong house. It kind of in the same way like a red flag gun law would work. They're going to go into a house with no warrant, just like they did Ron Taylor. They're going to search for firearms just like they did, just because they thought it was the wrong house and somebody got killed. And that's going to happen. You're going to start seeing that once those laws pass. You're going to see that over and over again throughout the U.S.
It's never going to end.
No.
That's never going to go away. Things are going to happen.
Yep. Things are going to happen. At that point, like, as soon as red flag gun laws pass, you have to watch, like, the cancel culture comes in to what we talked about last week. Ben and I, you say one thing, and now that people know they have the power to hurt you personally, if they want to, they're going to red flag you. They're going to swat you. They're going to do whatever they want to if they have the power to.
I don't like the way you're using your hands.
I mean,
This show's canceled.
Get out.
I mean, almost anyone has the power to do that.
Yeah.
You can,
Well, once you start passing red flag gun laws and you give family, friends, and neighbors, like what if you're mowing your lawn and like yesterday our neighbor's lawnmower caught on fire and it was backfiring. Like I thought it was one of the cars because my car does the same thing. It shoots flames and does stupid things.
Hey, I'm Karen.
Yeah, literally. And now I'm
sorry, you buried the lead. Your car shoots flames.
Yes,
It does.
it does. It's not stock.
Got it.
Yeah.
In the near future,
figured that
it'll
was
be
the
even
case.
quite larger.
Yeah. Once we get that big Hiroshima hairdryer, and that's a turbo for everyone who likes
AKA
car talk,
turbos.
AKA big turbo. But yeah, my car probably gets the same noise complaints as people do.
No, seriously. Like to the right person, to a lot of people, your car does sound like gunshots.
Well, my boss who shoots a lot of guns with me, he even said like he drove it and he was like, this thing, if I was like sitting in my front porch, and because I pull in every morning and I downshift right before his house, and it's just like bam, 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 bam. It just sounds like multiple gunshots going out once. And he told me, he was like, I literally thought someone was shooting the first time you came into my driveway, and he shoots. Like he's not unfamiliar with the noise. He was,
Can you imagine how many phone calls you've gotten?
No. Every night.
I bet there's
driving
quite
home.
a few.
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack's dad.
Sorry, Jack's dad. If you do see this, I do apologize. I haven't been able to spoken to you because I don't really know you, but I know you're mad. So sorry. But yeah.
That sounded like a sorry, not sorry.
No, it's
sorry.
I mean, it's like a sorry. I drive by your house
Still came
early in
from
the
the heart.
morning and late at night with my loud car, but during the day, it's like a. Sorry.
It's hard for him to contain it.
It is really hard to contain when you drive something. Well, I don't know why we're getting this off topic, but we're in a car group called Drive Boss. If anyone's local to the area, like come hit our meets up. And
Shout out Drive Boston.
Shout out Drive Boston, Arshia. I hope I say your name right this time. But we're all in a car group, and a lot of these cars too. It's another thing that we have to talk about with like freedom orientated talk.
It is, because it is a weird thing no one talks about, because mostly in the car community, like we have gotten calls for gunshots on cars.
We've gotten calls for gunshots on cars. We've had cars searched
with no guns involved.
With
it's
no guns
literally
involved.
just the car making
noise.
And
on top of that too, like you have to have registration inspection. Like when we go out to these events, we run into police like almost every time. Because
we've made some good connections with some of the
a
state
lot of the
police
cops
down
will
there
come
and
out
stuff,
and they'll actually come out and pop their hood. Like they'll literally come into the meet, they'll drive around, make sure people aren't doing anything stupid, and then right before they leave, they'll pop their hood for 15 minutes and turn their lights on so everyone can come over and talk to them, and then they leave. Like a lot of the guys are really cool.
So going into a different topic real quick, in relation, I feel like, so I've been pulled over a couple times in the past couple months.
Yep.
And I've definitely spoken with some more officers lately, just hanging out and around, coming to the car meets and stuff. And I feel like almost they're under pressure to be even nicer to the community right now because of what they're going through.
Well, obviously what's going on with like with all the protests and
but
stuff.
I've definitely noticed a big difference, but almost in a way of like, it maybe it's helped them as a more understanding of be more a part of the community, not after the community.
Yeah.
Like you want the people to love you.
I think it's starting to change their mentality of let's go and look for as much crime as we can to maybe we should start to watch what we're doing and saying when there's people around. Like we should
Exactly.
start being
Be more involved in the community instead of, because like if they're more involved with everyone, can have one-on-one conversations or just
I've-
engage with the community, like other than them getting pulled over and meeting you that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I've talked to a lot of police officers too who've in the past felt the need to be like assertive when they talk to someone and they pull them over because they don't want to be
they're
stepped
trained that
on.
way.
Well, yeah. So they want to seem tough. They want to seem hard. Like they want to like not really intimidate you, but make you know that like they're not messing around.
Right,
And it's
'cause
like nowadays they're starting to maybe look at people as, hey, like how are you? Like they're starting to be just a little bit more friendly, because of what's going on.
But also they obviously they're trained on that because they don't know what they're getting into anytime.
No.
But I think there could definitely be more training, substantial training in place for
Well, that comes with anything. Like there should be a lot more training when it comes to teaching. Like with teachers, you and I went to high
that's a good
school,
point.
and a lot more training with police officers and anyone in like public service. You never really get enough when you're dealing with the public because they give you the power in the United States.
Everyone could always have more education.
Everyone could always have more education. Everyone could be safer. Everyone could be better at their job. Everyone,
Education could be better.
and that's where it comes to, I think, like the lazy mentality per se, where like people don't strive to become better at what they do. Like I feel like nowadays it's becoming more of a common thing for police officers to go out and start working out on their own a lot and start going and doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and start training because they know that what they have isn't enough.
I think people have become more lazy on their mindset of things, and
Well,
they're
yeah.
lazy on their opinions, developing their own.
Yeah, they don't want to go out and do the work. I feel like it comes with everything. Everyone wants things to be easy. It wouldn't be nice to just wake up in the morning with a six-pack because you dreamed about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like wake up with $1 million in
Yep.
your bank account and a six-figure job driving
What is
whatever
life?
car you
What
want.
is life at that point?
Exactly. You have to work. You have to work for it, and people don't want to do that. Essentially, like they just don't.
I think the process of working for it should be more enjoyed than most people. Most people want the end result immediately.
I think the people who grew up having to work hard kept on working hard, and that's where you see where the boundary comes from.
Right.
Like, and not to say that people who didn't grow up working hard are never going to work hard. I just think it comes easier to them.
Right.
Because they've dealt with it.
And
They've already went through the
you
ups
can't
and
get past
downs.
that, but yeah, they have their own hardships and stuff for sure. But
They do, yeah. They really do. And then that's where it comes to with like people with like in the government, where it becomes like all men are created equal and we're equal opportunity in life, but not equal outcome. People like nowadays are misconfusing the two. Equal opportunity is not equal outcome. Just because everyone
Right.
has the opportunity to be a millionaire doesn't mean everyone's going to be a millionaire. You know what I mean? It all depends on who works the hardest.
that's true. It's very. I feel like it's very complicated when it comes to that because yeah, some people that grew up very, in the perfect setup. You know what I mean? The perfect family, perfect, wealthy. They can still work their ass off. I have friends
I've seen it,
that
yeah.
have done that have grew up very well, and compared to their brothers and sisters, they've dramatically worked much harder than them, and I feel like that led him to real happiness because having everything handed to him wasn't that great. It was you were only happy to a certain extent.
Well, you don't get pride.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You did.
Like I started working right when I got into high school. After
Right.
school I'd go down and work with my dad every day, except every single
But
day
it felt
until
good.
it closed.
Yeah.
Well, it felt good because like it was my paycheck. I could
Right.
do what I want with my money. I didn't have to ask to do what I wanted with my money. If I wanted to go out and buy a shit ton of candy, I'd go out and buy a shit ton of candy. Like I don't know.
Yeah. And out of
And
high
that to
school, it
me,
hit
high
you
school-
with like, oh, like crap, like
if I keep working, I can do what I want to. If I
Yeah.
don't keep working, I have to listen to what my parents told
Yep.
me to do. And that's when I was like, work.
get me off their payroll.
Yeah, get me off. I wasn't really on I never had an allowance or anything.
Right.
But
But to a certain extent,
to a certain extent, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but
they have the leverage.
they always have the
They
leverage.
had the leverage.
They have.
Brad, you had the leverage. Sorry, Brad.
Hello, Father.
Um,
But yeah, we'll go back to like the whole New Hampshire thing too. In New Hampshire, it was 71,000, right? That was the quote number one. 71,000 new gun owners this year. Think about the amount
just
of
New Hampshire alone.
just New Hampshire. Think about what happens if that red flag gun law would pass. How many firearms and how many people would get hurt within the state? We're not like every other state. You know what I mean? We're not like
We're not at all.
we're not at all. Like we are up here in the woods, we have even the Democrats like guns. It's weird. It's really weird.
It's a different place up
It's
here.
a different place. It would take years for them to come up here. It would take decades for them to actually get, if red flag gun laws pass or even gun confiscation, for them to actually get all of them out of this state alone. Because they're
Not happening.
not happening.
Not happening.
And there are going to be people that get hurt on both sides. People who have done nothing wrong and they just feel the need to defend themselves against, whether they don't know if it's a police officer or not. Or there's some people who are going to go out there and just go crazy and then decide, you know what, this isn't happening. And a lot of people have been open about that. And there's a big movement growing about that now that they're saying, like, if this passes, if you're going to come take my stuff, I'm going to, fight for it.
No, that's definitely going to be a big thing. If that were to happen, people take that seriously, especially up here.
Yeah, and I talked to a police officer yesterday because the Amherst House kind of had a little fire. And they were all, he even said, he was like, if we had to come to, your house alone, it would take us 9 hours to just take everything out. Like, he was like, organizing ammo. It would take 9 hours to take everything out, right? Not only do we want to do that, but what happens if, there's somebody who has something similar or even the half of stuff that some people even have in New Hampshire decide to just snap and not want us to take their stuff. You know how much of a mess that will be?
Well, that's going to happen.
That is
people
going to
are
happen.
not going to. They're not going to want that.
Yeah.
And
they're not necessarily crazy people who have firearms. They're just, in quote, people who want to be left alone.
Right.
People who just want to live free. People who are sick of oppression and they feel that the government now, and they're partially right, is overstepping their boundaries.
I mean, there's plenty of people that live, up north in the middle of nowhere, and even 50, 100 guns, but they don't touch them.
No, not even. They look at them.
Yeah,
it's literally what they do. They maybe shoot them once a year.
Target shooting and stuff like that. But it's like, when it comes down to it, they're just worried about the safety of their family and their lives. Like, when it comes down to it.
Well, and a lot of times up here, like, when I grew up with firearms, there were always like a lot of things. They were art pieces, they were tools, they were something that you used for hunting and defense. And
they are tools too.
That's what they are. They're a tool. I mean, there's no difference between a hammer and a gun. They're both used for one, thing. A hammer's used to hammer down a nail, and a firearm's designed to stop a threat.
And obviously, the wrong person with the gun in the wrong hands. But that's always going to be an issue.
Well, it's always going to be everything. Wrong person that we saw in Europe, wrong person with a big truck.
And that's why we had mentioned on a previous podcast. I believe that safety can only be taken too far, like to a certain extent. Well, and I think it's definitely already gone too far. And
you either get too much freedom or you get too much safety.
Right, but we need to find a soft spot in between where
there really, in my eyes, looking at it, there really isn't a soft spot.
There's never going to be.
There is no going to be. It's either going to be you're going to progressively take away the freedom in the name of safety, or you're progressively going to take away safety in the name of freedom.
But I think safety should only go so far, because then you're taking away freedom.
Exactly, but where do the two end?
They're never going to.
There isn't. It's either hard left or hard right, and there's no in between. There's no middle ground for that. There's no
But I think potentially we could get to an area where it could level out to a decent amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree with there's certain.
Or at least
laws,
I want it to.
I would consider laws as a safety boundary or a punishment between, and I don't consider them safety boundary because one of laws stop criminals. You know what I mean? If someone's ever looked at a law and said, I can't do that. If they're really gonna want to do it, they're gonna be, I don't care.
Well, right. If someone's gonna commit a crime, they're not worried about what they're getting into.
Yeah, you might look at grandpa building the porch and he designs his zoning was off and he has to go get permits, and he might stop okay, that might be a safety boundary. But if someone doesn't care,
But that's to a different tier.
That's to a different. Well, that's where some people are going to argue. Well, some people look at laws and they stop because they know they're breaking them. Well, those aren't real criminals. No. Those are law-abiding citizens. Those are people who are actually trying to do genuine good and just trying to stay out of trouble.
Don't laws actually create criminals?
Yes.
Because then before, it's just amoral behavior.
Right.
Now, once it's against the law, now you're a criminal. Before you were just a jerk, now you're a criminal. So laws create criminals.
Exactly. And some people they're going to want to just create laws because they don't agree with something personally. It's not essentially because it's going to better their community. It's not essentially because it's going to make everything better or stop crime or stop violence. It's because they disagree with one thing. And that's when it comes down to, like, every person that I've had a conversation with about, like, we need red flag gun laws and stuff, it's always been about, well, I don't like them. You know, I've never had an issue with them. I've never had a bad experience with firearms, but I don't like them.
A lot of
So
people
I
like going that
disagree with
route.
new law. Yeah, a lot of people do. And I think that's where people nowadays are,
Yep.
it's common for people to come in and try to push their opinion. They can't accept other people's opinions
It's not that they can't accept it; they don't want to engage with understanding your side. And I'm always willing to hear other people's opinions and thoughts, whether it's absolutely absurd or not. I'm willing to hear them out because I like to understand where they're coming from.
Well, that's because they won't even listen to
But
their own side. Like, they can't even spit facts on, like, the Democrat side because they don't know. Like,
but they don't want to
they're
make it seem
ignorant.
like they don't know either.
Well, they don't. So a lot of
They
people
want to say they
who,
know this. This is what they're sticking to.
yep.
There's no way you can change their mind.
Well, like, I talked to a lot of Bernie supporters in the Libertarian community. A lot of new members once upon a time were Bernie supporters, and I hate this. It's not
Right.
that I hate that the Libertarian Party is
It's
growing. I hate that they're changing the platform because now there's something called, it's not a true thing. It's libertarian socialism. There is no such thing as socialism in a libertarian environment.
it's the image it puts out.
That it's okay. You guys might agree with, like, libertarian ideology, and sometimes, no victim, no crime, because you look at all their memes on Facebook and their Facebook pages.
Bad.
Why are you gonna shoot a home intruder? Your property worth, over their life? And I'd ask the home intruder the same thing: is my property worth more than your life? And then some people are saying, well, no. Okay, so then leave me alone.
Yeah.
And don't yell at me for, if you break into my house where, like, my family's in there sleeping, I'm gonna take that as, like, you're coming in to, like, hurt us. I'm not taking that as you're coming in to take my stuff. If I'm not home,
Well, the
okay.
point is, why are you entering my home? You shouldn't be. You can't. You can, but you can't.
No. Yeah.
And I'm going to defend myself because I'm going to assume you're a threat.
Yeah, and it's weird because there's a lot of people now in the Libertarian Party, and if you ask them, like, what do you think about, like, these laws and should things be required, they're really not libertarian. They just kind of label themselves as libertarian because that's, like, the fad or whatever. I don't know.
There's definitely the fad side
Yeah.
of
Libertarianism.
Yeah.
And then the true libertarians. Then you
I
have,
feel like there's also this area in between where it's just, at least right now, I feel like there's an overwhelming, not overwhelming, but quite a bit of people just coming into this area that don't know much about it, but they've heard some things and it compares to their ideas, but they don't know everything around it. They disagree with some things and agree with a lot of things.
well, that's what I think most people are like.
But that's where it splits. The people start to split into the fad side of just the overview of it, and then the other people that are actually very
The foundational.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the people who look into, like, the foundation of the party and the principles and look at the party guidelines, like, the people don't know what libertarians stand for and, like, what libertarianism is. You can go on lp.org, I think, and it's libertarianparty.org. You can Google it or just type in lp.org, and it will give you the party principles and what we stand for. So if you have any wondering exactly what it is, you can go and pull that up, and then you'll understand why there is no such thing as libertarian socialists, like, right off the bat as soon as
Right.
you read it. And that's funny because then, like, I like to poke the bear on Facebook a lot. So, like, when I get into an argument with somebody who's in a libertarian page and it might be a libertarian socialist page that I accidentally joined, and I tell everyone in that group that they're
Accidentally.
no, there was one time where it was like Libertarian Party of, like, Northeast, and I was like, oh, cool. And they were all a bunch of, like, I don't know if that was exactly the name of it, but it was something along those lines. But they were all a bunch of, in quote, libertarian socialists who were like, Bernie this, Bernie that, like, yay. And
That's
then
where Joey steps in.
that's where I'm like, you're wrong, like, just wrong. And then you explain to them, you put in the lp.org, like, website, and you say, look at the party guidelines, and then they click on it, like, they're a bunch of fascists, like, they're Nazis, and you're like, why are you associating yourself with the name then? Like,
Well,
why
also,
are you
it's like
trying to...
don't just read more than the front page, or read more, you know what I mean?
Yeah, don't just read the headline
Yeah.
and think, oh, that's a cool name, I'm gonna make my party based off the name.
But I feel like a lot of people do just read, the front cover of, whatever it is, and they think they agree with it, but maybe they do, but they think that's all it's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, well, when it comes to political parties, some people just look at, like, Republicans and Democrats, and what's the difference, really? You look at the difference between a Republican and Democrat, and foundationally, there really isn't.
Well, a lot of people right now, I don't think, can tell the difference.
No, it's just all about what's on the surface. All about that individual's agenda or that individual is whatever that individual is saying. Whoever represents the party at that time is what makes that party
Right.
that party. Like what made the Republican Party
That's what makes people
before
disagree and agree.
2016 was that we were so against gun control. We were so against, the Democrats trying to take away our rights and stuff like that. And then Trump comes in and he passes more gun laws than Obama did. And he outspends Obama in 4 years and Obama did in 8
Greatly.
years. And then he takes the infrastructure funding was 1.8 billion and then only used 600 million of that 1.8 billion and the rest just no one knows where it is. Like some people will look at that and then you ask a Trump supporter and like, well, I don't know about any of those things. And it's like, well, what happened to the Republican Party? What happened to, well, Obama did this, this, and this bad. You can't look at Trump's bad, but you can look at Obama's bad, and then they kind of brush it away like he's playing 4D chess. Like that's not a thing. Not a thing. He's giving away your rights and you're giving excuses for it. Let's just put it that way. You supported him so far blindly because you never truly looked into his.
People are taking their parties and sides too far because they want to defend it. I feel like even a lot of people are going to the point where they really don't agree with it. They agree with the main points and they agreed with it from the beginning, so they're running with it and they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to change their mind. They don't want to tell someone they agree with them now.
Yeah, and
everyone wants to be right.
I feel like a lot of times too, like the whole hashtag fake news is being used so widely. No one knows what's
I feel like
fake and not fake anymore. So no one even bothers listening to the news. No one bothers doing research on their own because they're like everything's fake.
Fake news has created more fake news.
Fake news has created people labeling real news as fake news.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, this is real, and then people are like, no, that's fake news, just because they don't agree with it. And then you're like,
that's why it's like everywhere you go, every site you go, everything you see, it's like there's always someone on the other side saying fake news.
Yep.
So to the average person, they don't even know what's real and what's fake.
No one nowadays knows what's real and fake. It's all about like control and pushing people's opinion on them and having to be right. And when you're wrong, you can't be right. Let's just put it that way.
People don't like to be wrong nowadays.
No, and that's the thing.
They can't admit it.
They cannot admit it. Like if you tell a Trump supporter that Obama spent less than Trump did in 8 years than Trump did before, that Trump's outspent Obama. He's passed more gun control laws than Obama. They'll flip out and they'll start like the biggest like. It's not true. He hasn't done that. Keep America great. Like he's doing such a better job for Obama. And I can agree with you on one aspect, the economy. Other than that, I literally can't agree with you on anything else. He's not good at foreign policy. He's not good on domestic policy. He's not good with like relationship between the government and the people has been shipped apart. Whether that has anything to do with just him or not, it doesn't. But still, he's doing a shitty job.
No, I can agree with that.
Besides with the economy.
But the economy definitely, I feel like we've needed this.
We have. I mean, that's good. Well, that's the only thing. It shouldn't matter who the president is. It just shouldn't. Like, just because he's the president doesn't mean that everyone should, doesn't mean the economy should go up or down because of what he does, He should just be helping and assuring the rights and making sure that our laws are, just and not as constitutional, even though we have the judiciary for that. I mean, just because the president has that power doesn't mean we should be able to let them use that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
100%.
where, like, back in the day, the states had so much more power and so much more say in their local economy and government, and they could do and say what they wanted to. And
people think they do now.
Well, the only reason they do is mainly it's the highway funding. It's because what happened is, like, when Montana they passed a law that gave their citizens ability to go out and buy full autos. And what the federal government did was they stripped them of all their federal funding because they widely disagreed with that. And then what did they do? They backed down, went back to normal, and they got their funding restored. So a lot of the times, a lot of people don't know the 10th Amendment is that the states have the right to reserve powers. Now that is in any context. Like that means that like they don't want federal officers in there like people are doing in Portland, whether you agree or disagree with this.
It's a big long game of chess.
It's a big, like listen, the 10th Amendment gives the state the right to kick out those federal officers. That gives the state the right to say, your federal laws mean nothing here. Our state has our own constitution. We're going to follow those laws. And a lot of people are kind of looking at Portland and saying, to the Trump supporters, 10th Amendment. I'm getting a lot of people on Facebook saying, well, that's bull crap, you're just going to let them rip apart your city. Well, the governor and the state has the right to do so. If they want them to do that, they're going to let them rip apart the city. Just because you disagree with it doesn't mean that right all of a sudden doesn't exist.
Yeah, all the laws that exist nowadays, everyone, if something happens, it's no, this isn't right.
A right is no longer insured.
But that's why I think people should be more informed on what these laws and what your rights are.
Well, yeah. Well, watch. Like, if, say, the tides return and the right was the one that was protesting and ripping up cities and stuff like this. These same individuals who said that, this is unjust and they shouldn't be doing it. If Obama was in office or Hillary was in office, they'd be looking right now saying, wow, they're doing a horrible job. They're coming and swooping up these people for fighting for their rights. Like, this is war. Like they would be saying, this is the equivalent of the Tea Party and stuff like that. And I'd agree with that in both contexts. You're fighting against the government, destroying government property. I guess I can say, that's kind of Tea Party-ish,
right,
per se. But
not that I agree with it.
They're going to agree with it if it was their side. And they just, right now, I think that's a huge thing. If there were Republicans rioting because of violations of rights and destroying cities, and the feds were going in and picking them up under a different administration, there would be an uproar of Republicans. They wouldn't be sitting there being like, yeah, go pick them up. Like, watch these terrorists get picked up. They'd be saying, like, look at these freedom fighters. Or they'd push it into whatever context they want it to.
Which everyone is doing.
It's widely, it's weird because now you look at like the Trump supporters in the Republican Party and you're like, what happened to you? Where did it go? And that's where I think now you see people starting to kind of gravitate to Jorgensen or the Libertarian Party, or even a third party view, because some people are waking up and seeing that both sides suck and both sides lie and both sides, they change on a whim. It's not about the party anymore. It's about the individual who's running as the head of the party.
I think there's definitely a large group of people that, obviously, very large group of people that don't even know about Jo Jorgensen.
Well, it's because you ever seen him on mainstream media? You
no,
ever seen
not
him
at all.
News?
You Google her name. There's really not much that comes up.
No.
There's most other candidates you'll find, something posted 4 minutes ago, and she's got
daily tweets.
Yeah, daily tweets is like the most up to date the media has gotten on her.
Pretty much, people are starting to retweet it, which is nice, and like
it'd be nice to have her on here.
Well, I also noticed I would reshare like a repost a lot of things on Facebook involving Jo Jorgensen, and some of them were actually taken down. I didn't notice that until later because I never get notifications when Facebook takes down one of my posts. I feel like they do it on a regular basis. They're just like,
yeah, they don't tell you.
They don't tell me anymore. So I go to my wall and I'm like, what happened to the photo that like 6 or 7 people liked? And it's just gone. And I'm like, what the heck? Because that was a good quote by a libertarian or somebody like in the past that I wanted to save, and then I can't anymore. But that comes to the whole like cancel culture too, where you get these like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, where they can monetize or sensitize whatever
that affects
they want
the entire country, because there's media that's not getting out there and there's media that's getting out there based on their choice.
Well, you have to pick. You're either a public entity or you're a private entity. If you're a private entity, go right ahead, do what you want. If you're a public entity, no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to kind of appease the people because you're, in quote, a public entity.
Right. So, Jo Jorgensen is currently in Austin, Texas right now.
They should have farmed, didn't she?
Pioneer Farms.
So what are the...
She's going very deep into the community. She's going very deep. She's going to these... I believe Pioneer Farms is some sort of museum. I'm not exactly sure. But she's speaking there, trying to spread her word.
They're trying to promote the message in the party. I think when she doubled the size of the Libertarian Party back in the day, I think it was a lot of the time she contributed that to going to a small town, rural America, and speaking to people.
Right.
Because a lot of people, they're not getting the news on what libertarians are, and when you hear it, straight from the person who's running as a libertarian for president, and they educate you on their, like message on a personal level, I think that reaches out to people a lot more than you see like Trump or Biden on Fox or CNN.
Very much a people person. I feel like she's very down to earth, engaging with people. Like,
but she's also a psychologist, so she knows what people like. She knows how to get in people's head. She knows how to make people, well, not really make people like her, but she knows what people like and dislike.
But she's portrayed the same image, as far as we know, her whole life.
A freedom-oriented individual who is...
And she's always agreed with her same thoughts. Yep. There's nothing that's like historically, shown her to be wrong in what she says.
Or even backtrack on what she says. Like, she's always stuck to what she
She's
says.
stuck
like,
to exactly what she says.
She's done a lot for the party, and she's done a lot for the people that she's worked with. And I think that, and we're starting to see her, because she said some things that pissed off a lot of the fake libertarians. And I say that because when
they agree with the image of it.
They agree with the image because, well, let's put it out there. There were a lot of Trump supporters who were mad that Trump, put more gun laws than Obama, and Jo Jorgensen's message was, we're going to take every gun law and rip it up. And everyone was like, hell yeah, like, let's jump on this. And then she said something about, like, like Black Lives Matter, supporting the movement, and then all those people were like, oh.
Yeah, because then, I mean, that comes down to people taking, personal sides on, even if they don't even know what's going on with that movement or that matter.
Yeah. Well,
people are immediately took sides on what they thought, even if it's completely irrelevant.
I support the movement, but I don't support, like, the organization.
I don't support the organization.
I don't think
I support
she does
the
either.
movement. I'm totally understanding on that. I totally agree with it. But I don't support the organization.
No, I don't support the organization. The organization is just,
the money's just
going straight to the DNC, and they even said they're Marxists, like we said last week. Kind of touched into it. Like, you can go on the BLM website and
you can look at it right there.
You look at it right there. You can see what they stand for and what they do and who they support and where the money goes to. It doesn't go to families that were affected by police violence. It doesn't go to the families that were, in quote, affected by, like, racism or anything like that. It goes straight back into the Democratic Party. And they might say, well, the Democrats the only party that supports like the black community. When you look at it, they've systematically oppression you and wrote every law that oppresses you and keeps you guys into Section 8 housings and since, like, the beginning. Like, they wanted you guys they wanted to segregate you with Section 8 housing. They wanted to keep down your birth rates with Planned Parenthood. They have done so many things that the Democrats supporting, where, sure, some people who are uneducated might support them and just say they're a great thing. And yeah, the right to have a child or not have a child, yes, that should be something that people retain.
Right.
But
of course,
when it comes to is where the foundation of it started as trying to keep down the black birth rate.
I don't know at this point. It's everything's gone too far with that. It's
Well, you look at all, like, the stuff that's coming out about, like, what the government did back in the day secretly to try to control us and influence us politically, and then you look at the stuff that's going on
so
now, and
many
they're
of
like,
those
oh no,
things.
that stuff isn't happening anymore. And
it's
how the
happening
hell
at
is that?
an even greater level
Yeah, it's
than
happening
it was.
It's even greater because that was just you guys testing your whatever you wanted to do. It wasn't just, okay, guys, we're gonna stop now.
No,
It was
not
like,
at all.
okay, how do we get around this without telling them, or how do we get around this without people finding out? Because people are always gonna find out. There's always gonna be witnesses in the open. Just crazy, man.
All right.
I think it's a wrap now.
I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, we'll have to come back next week and talk more Jo Jorgensen. We're going to talk about, again, local New Hampshire politics and what's going on.
We want to keep you informed on Jo Jorgensen.
Yes, we do.
There's not much media putting out what the people need to see.
No, not at all. And with that, we will end. I will see you next week, or we will both see you next week, I hope. Have a good one. Stay safe, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.